Hey, Mike here with yet another video, and today I want to talk about documentation. So I've been doing documentation today, and it's been quite interesting because it made me think, every time I go to a new project or a new client, I do documentation. I do a lot of documentation actually, and it's really never very good when I first join a company. It's always in a really, really bad way. I don't know why this is. I can pin it down to a few things, but the reason I wanted to cover this was because if you're new to the industry and you're new to DevOps and you're thinking, what does it look like coming in? Well, one of the things that you're going to notice right away is that no one writes anything down, and it's actually sort of really annoying. So you've got to really work hard to actually learn how things work in the organization. You've got to ask a lot of questions. You've got to do a lot of pair programming because, unfortunately, the docs are just never really very good, and they're just never really kept up to date. Now, tell me in the comments below if that's different at your organization. I would be very keen to hear how you actually do it, because whenever I go move from organizations to organizations, it's usually never very good. So that's on the unfortunate truth of things. Not many people get documentation right. It is hard to get right, but it's not too hard to get right. So if you're new, just expect that. Go in and just expect it to be almost nothing written down, or what is written down may actually be out of date. In fact, I'll give you a bit of a pro tip. Before you just start going off and reading documentation, check when it was written, check when it was last edited, and if you're unsure, check with someone on the team and ask them if it's still relevant, because it might actually be completely irrelevant information and you will waste a lot of time reading that. Now, if you're already in the industry and you're like me and you're senior and you're thinking, well, how could it actually be better? Well, my first tip would be to treat the documentation as a member of the team, involve the documentation in meetings. If you're going to sit down and you're going to look through your backlog and you're going to decide on the next sprint, or maybe you don't operate in that way and you just come up with ideas, or you act reactively to things that come in to you, problems that need to be solved, and you just need to get something out to solve it. Treat the documentation as a member of the team, and just as you would consult your colleagues on how do I do this or how do I do that, use documentation to go, how are we currently doing it? Look and go, is what we need to implement to solve this problem that's come onto our radar, is it compatible with what we currently do? Yes or no? Let's assume that it is. Cool. Then what you do is you write the documentation for what you're going to implement. You write it first, and then as you implement it, you may discover new things. That's okay. You can pause, you can go back to the documentation, you can iterate on it, and then you can carry on again. And what happens is you end up with this excellent documentation that is living documentation, and it's treated like a member of the team, and it's essentially treated with respect. That's the only way to really ever actually do it. Another way is to treat it as part of your definition of done. So if you do work in an agile, scrummy sort of way, whatever that looks like for your organization, and it is different everywhere, then when you complete a task, when a task is considered done, should be when the documentation has been updated. I don't like that approach. I think documentation should come first, always. However, that's never always possible, and some organizations just simply don't work in that way. But what are the benefits to getting documentation correct? Faster onboarding for junior engineers and new people, even senior engineers joining an organization. They're going to know how your DNS is set up, how your networking is set up, how your infrastructure as code set up, how your CI/CD pipelines are set up, what's relevant, what isn't relevant, what's old, what's new, what's greenfield within the organization, what's legacy within the organization, who is who has what skills, who can they approach if they have a problem with a specific technology that they don't know about but need to know about. They can go and speak to these people here. They are the SMEs, they are the subject matter experts on those topics. Go speak to them and your knowledge will improve. If you don't write that down, it becomes much harder for people to find that knowledge, and that starts costing the business time and therefore money. It starts delaying projects, and people onboarding will get frustrated too, because they won't feel as though they're adding value as quickly, because they can't add value as quickly because they don't know how to do anything. Within your organization, at least, they've brought all these skills and they've got all this knowledge. You could have 10 years experience and 10 years knowledge, but they come into the organization and unfortunately nothing's written down, and so they don't really know how to actually apply their knowledge and their experience to your environment. So if you're new, I'm afraid you're going to have to expect documentation to be very, very poor when you step into your first job. And if you're already in the job, then there are ways in which you can improve your documentation. However, I could be wrong. I could just be having lots of bad luck and getting clients that just have poor documentation. If it's different for you, let me know in the comments below, or head over to the DevOps Lounge. Head over to discord.gg/DevOps Lounge. We have a Discord server. Come and let me know on there as well. We can have a chat about it. What does documentation look like for you? Do you care about it? Is it a living member of your team, or is it already so out of date that you may as well just delete it? Let me know.